Well, here comes the next one, folks. And like the previous storms, the areas that are going to get snow are going to be mostly inland. We've got winter storm warnings up from Oklahoma, northeast of the Ohio Valley, and then another area up in northern New York and in northern New England. Winter weather advisories surrounding that. We've got strong winds across the Gulf states, severe weather along the Gulf Coast, and nice and quiet out in the west. We will be talking about that and getting into all sorts of trouble here tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, and Southwest Suffolk County on Long Island. They've got mulch, they've got salt, they've got sand, and they've got everything else you need to get you through this winter, be it snow melt products or snow shoveling instruments. You can get them all at Omni. 6317-561125. Nowhere can you find better prices, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. Where else?
Yes.
And
good evening to you, Mr. Rayo, on this Tuesday night.
And good evening to you, Grandpa. Again.
Yes.
Grandpa Cubed.
Grandpa Cubed. My granddaughter arrived today. There is a media blackout on the pictures of this child until I get the okay from my daughter. So she's pretty firm about that. So I'm not allowed to post them on social media until after she gives me the okay. And, or on this YouTube show. So, but she's a beautiful baby girl. And I got a phone, all for the last week, just to give you everybody the short story version of it. So for the last week, my daughter was my first two grandsons both of them came 2 weeks early. So we figured that would be the case this time around, and it was. So I've been on standby since late last week. I've been sleeping at night with my phone turned on, and Saturday I was down there in Marietta. Took the kids to a model train show with my son-in-law. So we were sort of thinking, okay, you know what? We can go to the model train show, and then when we get back, she'll tell us that she's in labor, and this way I don't have to drive twice. Didn't work out that way. So last night, 12:06, I get a phone call. The time has come. They had already called Dr. Harris that they were leaving for the hospital with Mrs. Ricardo. And I headed down, and by the time it's an hour and 45-minute drive from my house to my daughter's house. So I still had another half hour to go. My son-in-law texted me and said, the baby's here, everything is fine, and that was that. So I got a little baby granddaughter, and they're precious, and I'm very excited.
And we're all very excited for you. We heard the news. You told us about it when I made the decision this afternoon to come back on tonight. I'm here. A few people have said on the chat board, I thought Joe Rayo wasn't going to be on tonight, but we have a big storm tomorrow, and I felt it was necessary. I know you went solo last night. Sans the technical difficulties in the beginning of the show. We actually listened and was very interested in all of what you said and what folks on the chat board were saying. And I said, everything is behind me now. The wake was yesterday. My mom this morning. We were at St. Benedict's, our old parish, Joe. And I got to tell you something. Some of the people who never saw St. Benedict's were blown away.
It's a beautiful church.
It's a beautiful, magnificent church, and it was a magnificent, wonderful mass in honor of my mom. And then we went to St. Raymond's, and after that we had a lovely, I guess you can call it brunch, with a number of people who were with us the last few days, either yesterday or today. And it was on the way home. I said, what got to me was, like, it seemed like every other mile they have these illuminated signs along the roadway Snow tomorrow, be
Oh,
careful.
yeah.
Snow tomorrow, be careful. And, I said to myself, it's snow, but, as you are well aware, this is going to be for many areas, even in the lower Hudson Valley. This is going to be like 80 to 90% rain. The first 10 or 20% will be snow. And what snow does fall really isn't going to amount to it. I mean, I don't foresee taking my snowblower out tomorrow for what is going to be falling. And but it is going to be a nasty. I mean, like tomorrow night we're going to be in the throes of probably the nastiest part of the system. Heavy rain, gusty winds, maybe even some rumbles of thunder. And I said, with all that happening or all that about to happen, I really ought to be on with Joe tonight. So here I am,
All
and
right.
I'm
Good.
very happy for you.
And I'm glad you're here. And I want to add to what you said with regards to what's going to happen tomorrow. Yeah, I actually been scratching my head for the better part of the afternoon. Yesterday at midday, uh, I saw the NAM, which had these really just beefed up numbers everywhere. It gave LaGuardia 0.6 of an inch, and the T1, the temperature profiles in the atmosphere were all below freezing right through 7 o'clock Wednesday night. It gave, so it basically said 6 inches, and the guidance was the GFS was beefed up as well, and then all of a sudden during the afternoon, it became apparent that this lead band was going to really kind of set up more to the north. But as we've gotten a day closer, Joe, I was sort of scratching my head late this afternoon. I was actually surprised to see them put advisories as far south as they did in the Hudson Valley and into southern Connecticut. And I also was surprised to see that they beefed up some snow amount numbers, particularly up to the north. And I have to tell you, I'm not so sure that's going to happen. Even in those areas where it's going to be colder and further north, I think I think they're looking back to what happened yesterday and night before last and yesterday, because there were a lot of places in upstate New York and in northern Massachusetts and southern Vermont and New Hampshire that came in with some pretty hefty snow amounts, up to about 9, 10, 11 inches, which were almost double the forecast. And I just wonder whether they're looking at that situation and then looking at this one and said, well, we better beef up the numbers because we just got, we just under forecasted the last one. These are two different types of events. The upper air is different. The surface low and how the surface low is playing out is totally different. You got a primary low that's going to Lake Erie, and you could barely find any kind of secondary development going on. So I'm just wondering, it's like, why are I kind of went with the amounts that I have, and I have a snowfall map which I'll show in a little bit. But I did an early call a couple of days ago. I left the map exactly the same, which is on the low side. I mean, I don't know if you were able to look at the stuff today, but I just was not bowled over by some of these bigger snow amounts that I'm seeing being forecasted in places well up to the north.
I did get a chance to look during this afternoon in advance of the show tonight, and I was thinking, for where I am here in Putnam Valley, maybe an inch or two, but I'm also questioning how much of that is going to actually end up sticking to the roadways or sticking to my driveway. This may be one of those cases where the colder surfaces, like the deck that I have that faces north, or some of the trees or the grass, will get the snow accumulation, and maybe my driveway won't even have to do any shoveling, because it does come during the mid to late morning hours, the arrival of the snow. And the sun, of course, even though we won't be able to see it, the ultraviolet infrared rays are going to be coming through, interacting with whatever paved surface or blacktop is going to be out there. And so initially, that snow is certainly not going to stick. I know it's going to be getting cold tonight. It may get down below freezing for a while here, but I really don't foresee any major problems from the snow. It is really, and it's got to be, it's got to be so frustrating. I was watching our good friend Lee Goldberg tonight on Channel 7, And here he's trying to stress as best he could, and I agree 100% with him, the fact that the nasty part of the storm is going to be wind
And
and
rain
rain
and the rain
and
and
thunder and
thunder.
lightning and a whole bit and possible flooding. And meantime, his cohorts behind the news desk, the anchor desk, are saying, Lee says we're going to get snow, and we'll talk more about that. In other words, they're hitting hard with the snow, even though it really, Lee would say, it's not really, and he said it's not really going to be much of the snow. It's going to be the rain but they don't listen. But of course, you and I know, being in the business, you need to grab the viewers, raise the ratings, get as many people as you can, many eyeballs as you can at the TV screen. So what do? You scare people by saying snow, 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 when really it's going to be rain, rain, rain.
All
But
right.
that's television.
Now,
That's television.
let's get moving with the match. Before we do, just want to acknowledge Trish Sparacchio, Howard Hassel, Ken Musillo, Helen Bertona, all hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you so much for that. Timothy Veltman, also congratulating me on my granddaughter. Condolences to you, Joe, with your mom. And also, Howard Hassel says, for Joe and Joe, I feel like I owe you two a lot. So thanks for doing all that you do. I really appreciate you saying that, Howard. Thank you. Joe and I just try our best, and we try to have some fun doing it. So
that's interesting also that Tim Veltman on his Super Chat message says, congratulations on one beautiful new soul entering the world and sincere condolences on another departing. And you and I, Joe, we talked about this off air about how interesting it was that mom is out there somewhere, probably have completed her voyage, I hope. But at the same time that she has left, we have a new soul that has entered the world, and that is your beautiful, lovely new granddaughter. So that's the way life is, and that's the way the world is. We one goes and another one comes in.
Oh, and somebody's using a snowblower here. Boyko. I hope I said that right. He says, just finished snow blowing 150-foot driveway here in New Hampshire. Another storm coming tomorrow. Time to gas up the Arians again. I guess Arians is a brand of snowblower. I don't know, but correct me if I'm wrong, sir.
Better him than me. I really am not in the mood tomorrow to do any snow blowing, and I honestly, as I said just a few minutes ago, we think I think we're talking on the same wavelength, Joe. I think the snow will begin to spread across the immediate tri-state area mid or late morning, sometime that's between 9 and 12. And initially, when it does arrive, I honestly don't think that we're going to see very much in the way of accumulation on most roadways, partially because they're treated, but even on most paved surfaces, because it's just, I don't think the ground is going to be cold enough to support that. It's going to be kind of a wet, slushy snow, and it's going to become increasingly more slushy as the afternoon wears on. Eventually, will turn over to all rain, and whatever snow falls, really we're looking at a hard hitting rainstorm. So whatever snow does fall, it's either going to get mushed up, slushed up, or washed away completely by all the stuff that's going to be falling here right about this time tomorrow night.
Yeah, and I think that changeover is going to make its way up, even up into central New England, before it's all said and done. All right, let's look at what's up with watches and warnings, because there's a lot of them that we have up all over the place, and I got them outlined on the hazards map, so you're just going to have to bear with me and just follow the colors. So we will start off in the great state of Maine, which is the whole state is pretty much under a winter storm warning, with the exception of a handful of coastal counties, including Portland, I believe. Also, we have southern New Hampshire counties under winter weather advisories. They've added winter weather advisories in eastern Massachusetts, except the northeasternmost county. We also have some flood watches up for parts of southeastern Mass. Winter weather advisories for much of Connecticut north of I-95. I might have gone with Route 15, but that's me. I actually might have gone with just Route 84. But again, That's me. Winter weather advisories up and down the Hudson Valley, east of the Hudson River and east of 87. There's that narrow area. You look at that and you say, well, Joe, how come you got warnings on one side and warnings on the other? There's the Adirondacks on one side and the Green and White Mountains on the other, and the area in the middle is kind of like a valley. And in situations like this, you get a lot of warm air that just screams up in between those mountain chains, and it settles in there. So you wind up with these large gaps in snowfall totals. You'll have higher amounts to the west and higher amounts to the east and lower amounts in the middle. Just about the whole state of New York is under either a winter weather advisory or a winter storm warning, with the exception of Westchester County and the New York City counties and the Long Island counties. We have winter storm warnings up for the Catskills, including Monticello and Sullivan County. We have in Pennsylvania winter weather advisories, but there are a bunch of counties in central PA which are under a winter storm watch. I guess State College didn't want to, just go ahead and put up a warning now, or just go ahead and switch to an advisory now. I guess they decided to just wait on this, but everybody else kind of made their commitments already, but we'll see. We also have advisories in northwest New Jersey, and they've added Morris County to that. Earlier this morning, it was Warren, Sussex, and Western Passaic. They have now added Morris County to that advisory zone. Along the coast, we have wind advisories up for Long Island and the coastal areas right on through to southeastern New England. Probably see some gusts to 50 miles an hour out of this. And also in the green, we have coastal flood advisories for the south shore of Connecticut, the shores of Westchester County, in and around New York City, the New York Harbor and New York City, Nassau and Suffolk counties, and down into Union, Warren, and Union, Essex, and Hudson counties in New Jersey, as well as Middlesex and into Monmouth County for those coastal areas. Winter weather advisories go down through the central Appalachians. Winter weather advisories into Ohio, Joe. Winter storm warnings, western Ohio. There you go. Into a good chunk of Indiana, southern Illinois, southern Missouri. I think St. Louis is just outside of this, or maybe they're in it. I'll have to take a look. Northwestern Arkansas, and across much of the state of Oklahoma under winter storm warning. So a very, very busy map. I'll just get it a little wider here so you can get a full appreciation for just how much land coverage we're talking about out of this winter storm. And you can see where the track is going, folks. Right up, the low is going to track into western Tennessee, central Kentucky, kind of make its way up eventually up into Ohio and toward Lake Erie. And that's why you're getting all this warm air that's going to be coming up. And to be fair, there's not enough cold. The amount of cold air around is minimal anyway. So, if we had a little bit more cold air, if the flow were a little bit flatter, you could run a whole long list of ifs, and it ain't going to change anything. Wind advisories all across the South, and that includes me, by the way, and into South Carolina. We've got a lot of severe weather going on tonight with flash flooding. Also, there's a working tornado watch in southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, into southern Alabama, and that includes the coastal waters. So a very busy, severe weather night. Meanwhile, out in the west, it's actually relatively quiet, except for a few odd winter weather advisories and 2 counties under a winter storm warning. One on the Wyoming side, the other one on the South Dakota side. It's fairly quiet in the west. So all the action here in the eastern part of the United States. And you're right. The bigger deal here is for the coast, from New Jersey, certainly from New Jersey, the lower Hudson Valley, southern Connecticut, into southeastern New England. It's going to be heavy rain, and it's going to be wind, and it's going to be thunderstorms.
Yes, and if you allow sharing capabilities, I could show everybody a graphic or series of graphics of one of your favorite show, Le
Le
Plumes.
Plumes de la
Yes,
Brioche. Well, by
which I
all means, share
which I
away. I've
found
shared. You're all set to go.
all righty. And the first thing I'm going to show you, this is Poughkeepsie. Now, this Poughkeepsie is located north of me, and it's about on the Plumes. It's about as close to representing where I live.
By the way,
It's been
are those 15Z or the new 21Z, which would
no, the 21. If I tried 21, but
not yet.
wah, you
Okay.
know,
So
El Blanco.
back to the 15 then.
Back to the 15, and the first thing that I'm showing here for Poughkeepsie is the total liquid quantitative precipitation, and they're showing or indicating, Joe, just over an inch, maybe 1.1. Well, it says here the mean 1.09, and if you want to take a look at the 3-hourly QPF, take a look at this right here. This is indicating that the worst of this is probably going to be hitting. Well, the peak would be at 06Z or 1 o'clock in the morning on Thursday morning. As you can see, everything rapidly begins to climb precipitation wise. Again, this is for Poughkeepsie now, after 15Z, after 10 o'clock in the morning. So think of 10 o'clock in the morning or maybe a little bit later as the time when precipitation is first entering the region, the tri-state region, peaking at its worst again at about 1 a.m. on early Thursday morning. Now, the interesting thing is, you talk about snow versus rain. If we look at the precipitation type, we see that precipitation, the type of precipitation, gets kicked off immediately as snow, and it peaks at sometime around, let's say, the 21Z, which would be 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But then notice also the indicator for just plain rain. It seems that right about here, right about, let's say 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening tomorrow, at least for Poughkeepsie now, they're showing equal chances for rain and or snow. The chances for snow, again, rise, reaching its peak around like 3 or 4 o'clock, but again, overtaken by the probability for plain rain. In fact, the chances for snow begin to drop. The chances for rain rise. They crisscross each other here at around, again, 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So right about then, that is when the precip is probably, at least in Poughkeepsie now, switches over from mostly rain as opposed to snow. And then notice the big drop off now in the type of precipitation in terms of snow. Snow, it drops off rapidly. And meanwhile, the chances for rain increase markedly. So you could see it again by mid to late afternoon tomorrow. It's going over mostly to rain. So whatever we do pick up, we're going to, if you're a snow lover, it has to be picked up in the initial shot, so to speak. It hardly looks like a thump if you're looking for snow. But it's interesting to point out that the 3-hourly snow amounts seem to peak just before 7 o'clock, and then they drop off rapidly. And as far as total snowfall in Poughkeepsie, the plumes are indicating this is for total snow.
The mean,
The mean would be 1.16 inches of accumulation.
Now, yesterday at midday, when I looked at this, Joe, they were giving Poughkeepsie like over 7 inches. And now we're down to just see. This is why I'm just wondering. It's like I just wonder whether this is all just overdone. But I've got my forecast, and everybody else has theirs, and we'll know after the fact whether my hunch is right or not, and we'll see. But I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt.
I just jumped to White Plains, which is to my south, and at White Plains it is indicating. Just under a half an inch. The mean is 0.47. Now, just as a matter of having a good laugh here, let's see what they went for. Not at Central Park. They don't have Central Park for a representative for New York, but they do have LaGuardia. And at LaGuardia, they are indicating a snowfall amount of, well, let's see, 0.29. So they're saying that approximately 3/10 of an inch of snow is going to accumulate probably right off the bat as this precipitation arrives. And again, if were this for Central Park, that would mean that would be the first measurable snowfall of the season. It would also end the streak of something like 320 some odd days since last March 9th, when we last had our most snow or measurable snowfall. It would also, if they were to get 3/10 of an inch tomorrow at Central Park, the record for the longest number of days in any winter season is January 29th, 1973. And so if we were to see any kind of measurable snow at Central Park tomorrow is the 25th of January. So we would just miss out by 4 days of tying that record. But again, this is not set in stone, folks. Let's wait and see what nature actually does and actually produces. And it won't be the guys, it won't be the National Weather Service guys who used to get outside of 30 Rock and just measure the snow off the tops of cars. The snow now is measured by the Central Park Conservancy. And so I don't know how they're doing the measurements, but it'll be up to them tomorrow to determine whether or not it's measurable or whether or not it just barely is enough to make a mark on most rulers or yardsticks in Midtown Manhattan.
Listen, just for laughs, since you have the SREF, why don't we take a look at what it gives for? Take a look at some place in Vermont or in New Hampshire. Let's look at New Hampshire, just for laughs. Let's look at New Hampshire.
All righty.
But we do have a lot of we do have actually quite a number of viewers. I'm discovering that watch from New Hampshire. So why don't we look at?
I'll give you your choice. You can go to Manchester, Concord, or you can go even further north to Laconia.
Laconia. Let's do Laconia. Laconia.
You're going to get a nasty letter from somebody in New Hampshire.
I know.
All right. So we'll start off first with total snowfall. And for Laconia, they are going for a total snow of 5.08 inches.
Even here, it's not that much. I mean, 5 inches is 5 inches, and they just had a fair amount of snow last night and night before last and yesterday. But this is not going to be a foot plus snow producer.
Let me just see I wanted to just see what the temperatures are projected to be. That tomorrow, for the most part, the day as a whole in Laconia, New Hampshire, will be below freezing. But notice, if you will, Joe, even there,
the mean goes up over, what is that? It goes above freezing. It's a Thursday morning. Yeah.
33.56, and that is for 1 a.m. on Thursday morning. So they're above freezing, and they peak at 40.88 inches, 40.88 degrees Fahrenheit, and that would be sometime around 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning on Thursday. So they not even there, they can hold on to this as all snow. In fact, precipitation type, well, you could see it goes all the way up to 100% probability. That would be, and that would make sense because, again, they're going to get, the 5 inches. But then notice as the temperatures begin to warm, that probability for snow after what time would this be? This would be for about 3Z or 10 o'clock in the evening tomorrow night. It drops off sharply and crisscrosses the probability for rain. So sometime around 1 a.m., just as we were looking at the temperatures going above freezing, 33 degrees at Laconia, that's when the models are suggesting that the changeover from all snow to rain will take place. And then there's nothing, Joe, like having a significant rainfall on top of 5 inches of snow. That's going to make for a very messy, sloppy picture for the folks up in. So all of you who live up in New Hampshire and are skiers, for example, you don't like the look of this. That's you could do without the rain.
By the way, when you open up this page, it defaults to Oklahoma City. So why don't we look at Oklahoma City, because they've got winter storm warnings up there, so we could take a look. And the other thing is, folks, with this particular tool, and I think Timothy Veltman may have put the link up on the chat board for everybody. The way we use this tool is not really so much looking at the specific amounts, but since this thing comes out every 6 hours, it can be useful to see whether it shows higher or lower. If there's a trend of the SREF model showing higher amounts with every run or lower amounts with every run. So we use that as a tip-off usually as to what the regular models would do. And in this particular case, they've been going down, down, down with every run, particularly in the southern flank of this weather event. So we've got Oklahoma City there, and they've got what? The mean line, the mean snowfall.
Snow.
Yeah.
Mean snowfall 2.57.
Okay. Well, some of it may have already, we may have lost a half an inch or so because it looks like it started before 18Z. This is the 15Z run. So, okay. Anyway, so for them, their winter storm warning criteria is a little lower than it is in the east.
But this is interesting, Joe, is that it's opposite to here in the Northeast, where you see the snow peak and then all of a sudden drops sharply as it warms up and the rain takes over. Here, as you can see, what we start off with, we're starting off with a greater probability of rain versus snow. But look what happens in the hours to come. According to the Plume's model, it drops off, the rain probability drops off, and suddenly the snow probability climbs or rises. This would be during, this is 125 now, so this would be for Wednesday. On Wednesday, during the day tomorrow, it starts more rain than snow, but then as the colder temperatures, I presume, takes over, the probability of snow drops off, probability of rain drops off, changes over to snow, and then snow just peaks. 84% probability of snow in the hours after midnight tomorrow night into early Thursday morning. And if you want to look at the temperatures, there's your reason. We start off.
It's like a string of Christmas lights.
Yeah, exactly. Look at that. And to just go, the temperatures are going down, and then they come back. They make a recovery. This would be
50.
This would be the 25th.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be tomorrow.
Right.
It makes recovery back up to around 45 or so, then drops down again and comes back. It's an up and down pattern, but you can see how during the precipitation event, how it's going to be dropping on down and flirting with that freezing mark. A good number of the various, this is freezing right here, this line. I know it gets confusing because there's so many different members that are out, that are displayed here. But generally speaking, it's going to be a kind of a messy day in Oklahoma City tomorrow because of the temperatures, the falling temperatures, and the precip. That's going to be.
Well, you piqued my curiosity, so thanks for doing that. Now,
yeah,
let's show everybody my snowfall forecast map. William from Jersey Shore has been pestering me on the chat board the last couple of days because I wouldn't show the map, and he was doing it again. So now that we're about 45 minutes into the show and it looks like he's gone, he just disappeared. So now I'm going to put the map. Up.
What you just said reminds me. Many years ago, Renata and I went to it's not even called the Westbury Music Fair anymore. We went to see Don Rickles at the Westbury Music Fair.
Right.
And he did a solid 70 minutes of comedy, and he noticed. He was coming to the end of his bit, and he noticed several people who got up out of their seats and decided that they had enough, and they went out of they left.
Right.
They left, and he said, he made the remark. He says, "Oh, some of those people thought that I was coming to the end," and he said, "Well, blankety blank them. I'm going to do another 30 minutes. They're gone." He went for another, and he did. So the gentleman who was waiting and finally gave up on you, good.
Yes.
I see your map up now.
Yes. Yeah, I could have actually added to that story because I went to, just really quick, I just went to Westbury Music Fair. I got to see Red Buttons. I think it was about
Oh,
maybe 3 months
oh,
before
oh,
3 months yeah, 3 months before he died. He was very funny. And Phyllis Diller, who was on her final tour, final comic tour. And I had met her once before, years and years ago, on when I worked for the Today Show. So it was nice to. She was great. Anyway, they were both great. Okay, so
yeah,
this is what I did. This is what I did a couple of days ago. And I held steadfast when the models were beefing things up, and I just kind of held it to tonight. The only thing I did was I wrote in snowfall total amounts in the range inside that 4-inch zone in northeastern Pennsylvania and through the Catskills. So
right.
let's call it a general area of 4 to 6. Northwest Massachusetts into Vermont and New Hampshire, except the southeast part of New Hampshire, I went 4 to 6. 2 to 4 for northern Connecticut, north of 84. Then it kind of tails down. Joe, I have an inch to a 1 to 2 inch range. And I'm going to tell you right now, I know I'm going to be probably too high in that southern flank. So, I didn't think it was worth redrawing a whole map when I was going to leave everything up north alone and just kind of, um, you know, just make adjustments in the south. So, uh, just basically cover for as little as a coating to maybe as much as an inch or maybe a little bit more in that area south of the 2-inch line. That's the only thing I would say. And I know I got the 2-inch line drawn through Putnam County. I probably could have pushed it up a little bit further to the north based on the guidance today, but you know what? It's no different. It's still less than what I saw the Weather Service put up.
Right. Right. I was surprised too. My daughter, who was in the car with us as we were coming home this afternoon, mentioned the fact that here winter weather advisory is in effect for blah 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 and Putnam County. I said, really? They put us in a winter weather advisory? I mean, that kind of was surprising to me. I didn't
Yeah.
think that was going to be worth it, but it's a CYA forecast, Joe.
Yeah,
Better
I
safe than
agree.
sorry.
I
Yeah.
agree. And they've the Weather Service's updated forecast on the digitals. They got 4-inch amounts up in northwest New Jersey near the New York State line. I don't know exactly what that 2 is, if that's in northern Hunterdon County. But 4 to 6 in and around Scranton, 7 in northeast as you get up into the Catskills. Only 3 in Albany. That's kind of funny because I looked at some of the guidance, some of the guidance snowfall forecast maps, giving as little as 2 inches in Albany on one model to as much as 10 inches in Albany on another. So,
Wow.
I just didn't think, and that was the European that gave the 10 inches, by the way. I just did not think those amounts were justified. Now, you go up into in the Adirondacks, you go up into north central New York, you go up into Vermont, New Hampshire. Okay, it's basically a 6 to 10 range, higher peaks with some higher numbers. I think that makes sense. The same thing for Maine. That also makes sense. They also have some relatively high numbers in central and western PA of 6 to some pockets of 8 inches. Okay. I don't know, with the low going where it is, it's a little bit dicey. I'm not sure about whether those are too high or not. And you see the 6-inch amounts back into Ohio. I'm going to add to this by just going to the digital map, and we'll shift westward. And you see there's a band in and around and north of Indianapolis. There's an 8 to 12-inch band there in Indiana that extends up into northwestern Ohio. You head down where the other winter storm warnings are in southern Missouri, and you're looking at 6 inches plus. Looks like St. Louis has a 5 print on there, Jefferson City a 3. You've got some 8-inch amounts in northwestern Arkansas, and then, of course, you start to go further to the west, and some of this may be on top of what's already fallen. So it's a moderate event, I think, overall, in the areas that are dealing with this. From Oklahoma to New England, for the most part, I think it's a moderate event. You're seeing 2, from 2 to as much as 4 or 5 inches in the lower peninsula of Michigan. Detroit getting a 7, by the way. And it looks like Grand Rapids, Lansing, 6, 7, 8 inches there. and then the amounts kind of tail off a bit. This is snowfall, by the way, running right through Friday. I'm just going. Let me shorten the time frame just to, sometimes you start putting one snow after another. They kind of run close together, and you don't, these numbers are, they're rolling. Uh, so I'll just roll this back to 1 p.m. Thursday just to make sure that this is all coming out of the same system. And you've got some low amounts up in the Dakotas. You pick up some higher amounts in parts of Montana, and that pretty much covers it. Also, some lower amounts. Denver getting an inch here on this map. This is now, I reset it to Thursday afternoon, and also into northeastern New Mexico, an additional 1 to 2 inches in northwestern Texas. Leon Probitsky just hit super chat. Thank you, Leon. And we're way over 100 likes, which is really nice. So let's keep going, Joe. Let's look at severe weather.
Well, you mentioned. We'll look at severe weather right now, but you did mention something on the way home last night as I was listening to the show about that stretch from February 1st to February 4th, or you said it like a 72-hour. Obviously, I couldn't. Actually, I could. I was driving. Renata was watching the show on her phone. Technology, folks, and she was talking about how the models. I think it was the 18Z model was saying that there would be a prolonged 3-day period of frozen precip, and I was just wondering if.
And when I looked at
you said you would bet any amount of money that on the next run, the 0Z run, that it would be gone or would be taken away or whatever.
And it was gone. And by the way, it gave in terms of generated snow, it basically gave a season's worth of snowfall in that 36-hour period from Georgia all the way up to Maine. 20 to 30 inch amounts, especially when you headed up into the north. It would have made up for. It would have taken us from being snow-starved to above normal, well above normal for the date. So yes, it's not happening. Not certainly not that way. But we do have an active severe weather night tonight. We've got enhanced risk of severe weather across southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, the westernmost part of the Florida Panhandle, and that is coming with a 10% tornado risk, 10%, which is pretty high. And we've already had numerous severe thunderstorms and tornado warnings that have come out of this. And right now, we've just got a bunch of flash flood warnings in southwest Louisiana and 2 severe thunderstorm warnings that have popped up as these storms march eastward. Heavy rains going on in Mississippi. And the radar signature here, Joe, is a pretty well wrapped up low, and you can already see it's tilted north-south, so it's already the upper trough is just going to start to swing negative and lift this up west of the Appalachians. And we never. This is going to be another situation where it starts snowing in northern New York and in Vermont before it starts snowing in New York City and Long Island.
Right.
And that's never good for snow lovers. Never good.
You've been saying that that's an axiom that we've been talking about over the last several winters, and it's a good signal that if you see that, if you're a snow lover, that ain't looking good indeed for at least a lot of snow.
Correct. And the risk area, by the way, for tomorrow shifts eastward, where we now have a slight risk all the way up to the Northeast Virginia, North Carolina state line, and then southwest from there into South Carolina, Georgia, and the Florida Panhandle with narrow areas of marginal risk on either side. And this also comes with elevated tornado risk, 2 distinct areas of 5% risk from, looks like from just northeast of Charleston, Myrtle Beach maybe on the south end, and Elizabeth City on the north end of North Carolina. And on the Florida Panhandle there, a narrow area that extends into southwest Georgia, where they have a 5% tornado risk. The WPC snowfall forecast here for the probability of at least 2. And you got a lot of areas here in upstate New York, in northern Massachusetts, it points northward where it's 80 to 100%. And WPC is actually, earlier today, Joe, they had wait, this was issued. Oh, this is the old one. Hold on a second. I thought I updated this. Hang on. Let me get the new one out. I'm not liking this anyway. Okay, here we go. So this is the new forecast that was issued at 3 o'clock this afternoon. I want to always make sure I got the right.
I'll make sure to update those.
Yeah. Sometimes my Google Chrome will automatically update it for me, and sometimes it doesn't. So they've got a 50% chance of at least 2 in northwest New Jersey, and it looks like maybe, southern Dutchess, northern Putnam County northward for a 50% probability of at least 2. But you can see a very large area of 80 to 100% for at least 2 from southwest Missouri all the way up through northern Indiana, northern Ohio, southern Michigan, northwest PA, and then on up through upstate New York and in northern New York and Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, except downstate. And should I use the probability of 4 or the probability of 8?
Well, go jump to 4. I think you jump to 4, and you're going to see that area of red shrink, at least on the lower flank, quite a bit.
Oh, yeah, the lower flank, it really drops off. You have to basically go north of Albany to get into the 50% line, and also you have to get at least up into southern Vermont, northwestern Massachusetts, in a small area there, and then southern New Hampshire, where it's about a 40 to 50% probability for at least 8. And of course, just a little bit further north in those red areas, we're talking about 80% or higher. That also includes much of the northern half of Indiana, northwestern Ohio in that mix, northwest PA, northeast Ohio, maybe a little bit of lake effect getting involved in there when the wind's back around to the northwest, when the low gets into Lake Erie, and also on the lakefront there off of Lake Michigan, we have a high probability in western Michigan. So a little bit of lake-enhanced snows going on in that zone. So let's look at the GFS. Let's run through a couple of models here and see what's happening. So,
by the way, on the chat board, we have Maria Rayo, and this Rayo, folks, is indeed related to me. She is my daughter. She's also a speech pathologist, and she is. Teaches up in the area around Dutchess County, and she says that in Orange County, virtually every school district has closed for tomorrow. So I don't know why, but considering what we're looking at, Joe, but that's what they've done, according to her.
I have nothing to say on the matter. Nothing. It's a road.
Yeah, she is.
It's a road that I do not want to travel down on right. At this time.
But Maria definitely is related. She is my daughter. Unlike other people who have shown up on the chat board claiming to be related to me, like Billy and Bobby. No relation there. But Maria, she is definitely my daughter, and she is indicating that many schools already in parts of the lower and mid Hudson Valley are saying no school tomorrow. So there you go.
Yep.
And she told me that there was 4, at least she has 4 snow days, and they were kind of like getting antsy, like, boy, we haven't used a single snow day yet. And
right. So let's use one.
Yeah, let's use one for the hell of it. So there you go. There's your snow day.
All right. Gary Gardner says, seems like as I remember, we had winters just like this back in the 70s a few times. Gary, you remember well. Yes. We had them in the 70s. We also had a lot of winters we had some winters like this in the 80s, and we had a few winters like this in the 90s. So there's nothing new here. And if we go back, you will probably find winters like this in the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, the 20s, and even in the teens. So and beyond and before that. So ain't nothing new. And by the way, for those of you who throw the climate change argument, It's one winter is not going to is not has no value in a data set. 50 winters like this would have value. So come back to me 50 years from now. I may be a pile of dust by then, but uh, come back 40 or 50 years from now, and then we can decide whether this was the beginning of something or just part of the normal cycle. And anyway, on that note, and the other thing is, not everything revolves around the areas from Washington D.C. to Boston. Okay, there are other areas of this country that are experiencing winter weather, and some places have experienced quite a bit of winter weather. So you can't measure everything just by one point and one zip code. So here's the HRRR. There's your low tonight. Sitting in northern Mississippi. You can see the squall line moving into Alabama and into the Florida Panhandle, and eventually, to me, I'm going to hear the pounding tomorrow morning, Joe, because it's coming right for me. So I'm going to get some heavy rains. And the low, as you watch, is tracking really so far left. And you get this arm of snow that develops tomorrow morning across northern Pennsylvania. This is what the NAM had yesterday. That stretched out over northern New Jersey and Long Island and the lower Hudson Valley into Connecticut. It was like really dark blue, heavy snow. And now, and the models quickly said no. And you can see that all spreads up to upstate New York. And there it is. The snow gets to southern Vermont before it gets to New York City. And here it is at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Joe. It's rain on the HRRR in New Jersey. It's rain in the Hudson Valley. It's rain on Long Island. And maybe you get a little bit of dynamic cooling for an hour or two, which is kind of what the model does show. But then it goes over to rain. And that rain pushes. Now, I only have out. This is only out 25 hours, so this goes to 8 o'clock tomorrow night. But you can already see how far north the rain line is. It's sleet, and there's even a dry slot that works through from southern Ohio and West Virginia, western PA, and into upstate New York. So to get this arm of snow that moves through upstate New York and into New England, and I don't know how much more you're gonna get out of this, because the low's already occluded out in Lake Erie, and also, by the way, you can see the convectiveness here on the HRRR at 7 and 8 o'clock tomorrow night in northeastern New Jersey and over Long Island, actually around 6 or 7 o'clock. So those might very well be some kabooms, some thunder boomers.
Yes, and and it's interesting that we're talking about that, even though the Storm Prediction Center doesn't even have the area of general thunderstorms up as far north along the coast as our area. But still, you look at all of this and you say, well, there could still be something. There could be a couple of renegade storms, thunderstorms that could pop up in this tomorrow evening. So why not just mention it? And there you go.
Yep, there you go.
And I'll mention also, Joe, that somebody brought up 72, 73, which was the year that Central Park had the least amount of snow, 2.8 inches. The thing I remember about that winter was that so many storms were going to the north of us, to the south of us. I mean, there were times Baltimore, Washington getting significant snowfall, 4, 5, 6 inches. And New York always was like, we were like in a hole. We were not seeing anything. Now, this winter is most definitely different than that, in that places like Baltimore, Washington, Philadelphia, whatever, have been just too warm. They haven't seen any snow either. So it's not like, people have to cry like, oh, the big snow fell in Virginia today. That hasn't happened. It's a totally different type of winter this year, as opposed to 72, 73, even though for snow lovers, so far at least, the results have been pretty much the same.
Oh, by the way, since you weren't here yesterday, I actually had snow here yesterday morning. I had
we heard.
Yeah, 8 o'clock. A nice, lovely coating of snow. It was a big surprise. I didn't expect it. It was nothing on the radar. It was all mountain effect. with a north wind. So it was pretty cool. So I switched over to the GFS, which actually has maybe a little bit. Maybe this is what they were looking at today. They saw the GFS, and the GFS has actually been behaving pretty well lately in the short range. And it does have a stripe of dark blue snow there across northern New Jersey, from Trenton northward, even to southeast PA and over Long Island, before it goes over to the heavy rain and the convective rains. And then it all starts to pull out by morning. It's already gone just about everywhere except for northern Maine for snow, and the rain is cleared out of southeastern New England. We should emphasize that along the coast tomorrow night, it's going to be some gusts of 50 miles an hour, I'm sure, from the southeast. Then we turn colder and drier after that, which is, what you expect to happen when these storms go by, although lately there hasn't been much colder air behind these systems to turn colder. But one thing I did notice, Joe, is I'm going to play through the long range here. Now, this is going to be now, hear me out on this, okay? Now we're going to get tortured in perhaps a completely different way for snow lovers, and here's what I mean. I'm saying, this is what I mean. So this storm pulls out. We've got a weather front that comes down on Saturday, and there's some cold air behind it, but there's ridging along the East Coast that kind of weakens that front. So it winds up, it seems, that we're going to get something else coming out of the southwest on Sunday. Nothing particularly strong, maybe some snow in upstate New York and New England, and rain for everybody else. Front moves through, turns colder behind that, maybe a little more significant with this double high, the way it's set up. And then the models are doing something around Wednesday. It was taking a lake slow on earlier runs. On this run, it's kind of flatter. But what I'm getting at is this. Let's just forget for a moment whatever happens next Wednesday, who knows. But I think it's a pretty good bet that behind this, as we've had a bunch of runs do this, and with what's going on in the upper air, there is a significantly cold high coming down for late next week. There's a 1052 high, a 1057 high in Canada there that drops down into Montana, Joe. We get thicknesses down almost to 498 here next Friday and Friday night. 510, 504, okay, something like that. There's the 504. 498 is running up through central New York and back through the lakes. Now watch. You're going to have all this cold air, which basically sweeps into the entire eastern part of the United States. And then when that cold air starts to pull out, what's going to happen? You're going to warm up and rain, and you'll never see a flake or an ice pellet. Now, that would be the ultimate slap in the face if we get into a situation where we start to get these cold air masses coming down, and you can't even get snow with that. Now, the one thing I will say is these off-hour runs keep wanting to overwhelm cold air and keep the southeast ridge on the flattish side and set up these overrunning patterns. It's kind of doing it again today, although the low is further to the west. And it's not over a 3-day period. It's just one wave that comes out. This would be for Sunday and Monday, the 5th and 6th of February. Who knows if that's even going to happen. But it does look like we're actually going to be getting some shots of cold air coming down from Canada, and I can just see it. We're going to have all this cold air, and we're going to be deep into the cold air. It's going to be too dry. You're not going to get any storms to come anywhere close until the cold air pulls out, and then it's going to warm up and rain. And that would be the end all for all the snow lovers standing on the edge of the cliff waiting to jump.
And let me show you that cold air, Joe, the Climate Prediction Center. And I have put this up on my screen here.
Hang on. Hang on. There you go.
So the Climate Prediction Center has, for the period from January 30th through February 3rd, this was done today. And you take a look at this area right here where it says below. And that's a rather broad area. That includes parts of Montana, the Dakotas, Wyoming, northern sections of Nebraska, a small corner of northwestern Iowa, and also much of Minnesota. This is 90 to 100% probability of below normal temperatures. So we're going to see in this zone, if this is correct, we're going to see some really frigid temperatures. I mean, we're right now climatologically, we are entering now the coldest part of the year. I know it doesn't seem that way here in our part of the country, but climatologically, this is the coldest part of the year. And it's now this cold air flow is coinciding with that. So look for temperatures here in this region in the early morning hours before sunrise during this period, 30th of January to February 3rd, probably, registering low temperatures of 20 or 30, dare I say, maybe even approaching 40 below in this area here. And meanwhile, look what we're doing, Joe. Here we are in the New York area and areas along the Atlantic seaboard, and we're sitting in above normal.
Well,
What's
the dates on that?
January 30th to February 3rd.
Okay.
But you got to understand also. I'm telling you, you know as much as I do about this. I mean, this is just a broad brush average.
Right.
Sure, there could be
4 day of 5 days actually.
Right. I mean, we could have a couple of cold days here, but I mean, when you average everything overall, I mean, as compared especially to the plain states, we're above normal or near normal or whatever. And this is the area of frigidity. In fact, if we take a look at the 8 to 14 day hazards outlook here, take a look at this. For the first time this winter season, a high, not a low or medium probability, but a high probability of hazardously cold temperatures encompassing the same area we just looked at out here in the plain states, and that extends to moderate levels all the way down to the Texas Panhandle and as far east as the central Great Lakes. And there's a slight, and that encompasses our area, Joe, and that they've also encompassed that the same time frame we were just looking at, a slight probability of hazardous temperatures as far east as the northeastern United States. So it's going to turn cold, and in some places out in the middle part of the country, very, very, very cold. But you're right. You're absolutely right. In fact, if we look at the probability for precipitation on the hazards map, they've got a broad area down here from the 1st to the 3rd of February, encompassing Groundhog Day, where there could be a risk of heavy precipitation. And once again, heavy precipitation possibly entering the picture along the western part of the United States. But I know what all of you are doing right now. All of you who are watching Joe and Joe, you're all saying, yeah, but what about snow? What about snow? Well, what about snow? Let's take a look. Here you go. Here's something for you to, maybe some of you might want to get in your car and travel. This is actually a broad time frame. This is from the 1st to the 5th. Hey, Joe, that was what we were talking about, or you were talking about last night. But look at this broad area of the slight chance of the risk of heavy snow from western New York, western Pennsylvania, encompassing much of the Ohio Valley, even as far down as the Tennessee Valley for the 1st to the 5th. And they also have a slight chance on the right along the Continental Divide, if you will, from the 1st to the 7th of February. And once again, for, the Sierra Madres and the Cascades and this skinny region here, a slight risk of heavy snow from the 1st to the 7th of February. So a lot of action going on. We'll see how it all pans out as we move into the new month of February.
Okay. So I'm going to get myself back here into the picture if I can find where I am. There we go. So anyhow, both of us have had long days today. Both of us are exhausted. Am I right?
I would agree on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and we've been now an hour and 7 minutes. I have the chairman, Scott Briller, popped in last night. He actually left me a couple of short Briller Jeopardy questions. I'm going to save those for tomorrow because I moved back into my workspace that I have in my bedroom, and the bed is like calling me because I literally got maybe 2 hours sleep last night. So
Understood.
On that note, let's wrap it up for tonight. And thanks everybody for being here, for the 174 likes that we didn't even have to ask for, which is always nice. And also for those of you who hit the super chat tip jar, thank you very, very much indeed. And for the kind words that you've said both to me and to Joe regarding our family situations. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, your go-to place this winter. And after the winter's over, it'll be your go-to place this spring. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. And as only Joe Rayo can say it, the website is
omnitruevalue.com. And very quickly on the scheduling, we'll be back tomorrow night at 7:35. We'll have to move our show to 8 o'clock on Thursday. I'm doing a library talk for a library out on Long Island. And then we're going to do a Friday show in honor of Mr. Cioffi, who's going to have another natal day coming up on Friday. Correct, Joe?
Another trip around the sun and up, and I still haven't been scorched yet.
Yes.
But they keep trying. Okay. Yes. So we are going to have a show on Friday at 7:35, and yes, 8 o'clock on Thursday. So everybody have a great night. And stay safe tomorrow, and we will be back tomorrow night. We'll be in the thick of it tomorrow night with heavy rain in some places, moderate to heavy snow in others. We'll see you then. Good night, everybody.
Nighty-night, folks.